kicking things off is Resident Evil 9 Requiem. Don't know if I said that right. I believe that is coming out later in the year. It is starring a new character who is supposedly the daughter of one of the reporter lady from the Outbreak. And Leon is coming back. And there's going to be a scenario for Leon, which is going to be more action based, and a scenario for the lady, which is going to be more horror based, kind of like in Resident Evil 6. And they return to Raccoon City. Now, Leo and I actually had a very different entry points into the series. I started with the first game back in '96 for PlayStation 1, and he started with Resident Evil 4. So, Leo, given your entry point, how has that shaped your overall opinion of the franchise?
Well, it appears that I came into it thinking it was a bit stabbier than it usually is, given I popped in all the actionized entries, as you pointed out.
Yeah, you plan on getting this game Resident Evil 9 at all, or are you pretty much done with the series at this point?
Well, I'm going to have to give you a solid maybe on that. As you know, my gaming budget is rather tight, but I have at least been keeping an eye on Resident Evil. It just never quite made it into the numbers to actually get one. Perhaps I should check through those that have faded in price over the years.
Yeah, I got the system for it, but my money's tight too. I'm probably definitely not going to be a day one buy. I may have to wait for it to go down or get it used or something. But anyway, like talking about the older games, I remember my brother rented Resident Evil along with Tekken 2 and Tomb Raider. I remember watching them playing it, and I kind of fell in love with the game. But I got around to playing it, I was so terrified of zombies I couldn't even go into another room.
Sounds like the game was a little too effective.
Yeah, back then it was. Looking back at it now, it's like it's not. It's really not that impressive. But as a kid, man, basically what the remake looked like and what us kids thought the original looked like when we were kids.
I have played the remake, and perhaps it's that I was desensitized to horror by that point, but the controls felt scarier than the zombies. Back when we were using the tank method.
Yeah, them tank controls really haven't aged too well, and it was like I believe standard with the survival horror games back then.
It does make sense to hobble the player just a little to put the horror in survival horror, though.
Well, yeah, and it's gone to the point now where, like, in a lot of the mainstay games, they don't even use the older characters because the older characters are so armed to the teeth and sophisticated. How you gonna make it scary when you can just solo everything with a knife?
Probably why in the interview for Leon's scenario in 9, they noted that they weren't trying to make it too scary, given that it doesn't make sense to have a cowardly Leon after all he's been through. And frankly, by this point, it should be the zombies hearing boss music rather than Leon.
Yeah, and he's old in this one too. It makes sense because, like, I think he was in his Shoney's in Resident Evil 2, and that took place all the way in '98. So that's a good. That's almost 30 years.
I must admit, I had lost track of the timeline myself, dipping in and out of the series.
Yeah, the timeline starts in like the summer of '98, and I forget how much it skipped when you get to Resident Evil 4. Have you played any of like the old school games? Because I know they re-released them on GameCube.
The oldest that I have played is the Dead Silence remake of the original on the Nintendo DS. I do not think I have obtained 2 or 3 in any meaningful fashion. I almost did on Steam, but even with Steam, the estimated playtime couldn't really merit the price.
Yeah, I can understand that. But like, shit, well, at this point, they pretty much remade the first 3 games, so there's almost no point to Well, they kind of cut a lot of content out of Resident Evil 3 remake for whatever reason.
Huh. That had eluded me and is concerning, as a PS1 era game like 3 would have been fairly short to begin with.
Yeah, like I played a little bit of the Resident Evil 3 remake, and they showed Nemesis way too soon in that. Like in the original, you don't even see Nemesis. He gets to the police station, and it's a big reveal, shocking. And in the remake, he shows up at a house right at the opening sequence.
I think they went for a different kind of fear with Nemesis that time, going from the slow tension build up to the immediate jump scare. Which, given his publicity, I can kind of see making some sense. You can't really pretend Nemesis doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but ever since he was, and it could just be nostalgia blinded me, but ever since the original, no one has really captured the Nemesis voice since the original game, in my opinion.
And that is impressive given the dubious audio quality of the PS1 entries.
Yeah, like a lot of his reappearances in like remakes, like Umbrella Chronicles and like Operation Raccoon City, like they make his voice too high pitched. Then the original was like a low growl almost.
Hmm. I cannot recall any of these renditions off the top of my head, but the low growl would be the most fitting for his size.
Yep. So I might have to imagine you played Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, didn't you?
PS2, actually.
Oh, pardon.
I'm not sure if there is much difference, to be honest.
Uh, I think I rented it on GameCube. Maybe I can't really remember. I had it for PS2. I couldn't really get into it. When I was a kid, I was like a hardcore Resident Evil fan, and it didn't play as a Resident Evil game for my expectation at the time. But someday I'm gonna revisit that game and see what it's all about.
4 and Dead Silence were indeed different beasts.